After 10 years of building my wife's dad's $100 million company, my wife's sister became CEO and fired me just to please her boyfriend. I barely managed to keep from laughing. Tomorrow was going to be fun. Chapter 1. The Firing 10 Years. That's Chapter 1, The Firing, How Long I Gave to the Delgado Family's Company. I started in a dusty backroom office with 2 interns and a laptop, managing supply chains, logistics, closing B2B deals, you name it. I worked late nights while my wife Alina begged me to slow down. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, even my father's funeral just to be the right hand to her father, Emilio Delgado. He called me son, said I was the future of the company, said he trusted me more than his own blood. Too bad he didn't put that in writing. 2 months ago, he retired. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer. Quiet exit. Private treatment abroad. And with no sons to pass the empire to, he handed the reins to his oldest daughter, Celeste, my sister-in-law, a woman with sharp heels, sharper tongue, and a boyfriend who thought he was the second coming of Elon Musk because he once flipped a crypto coin. The writing was on the wall from day one. She stopped inviting me to meetings. She reassigned my team. Started copying her boyfriend Travis on emails I used to be CC'd on. Still, I stayed quiet. I watched, I documented, and then it happened. During the quarterly board meeting where I was scheduled to present a projected $12 million expansion proposal, Celeste walked in smirking like she'd already won. "We're going in a different direction," she said, interrupting me mid-slide. A younger, more innovative vision. Then she looked at Travis, who wore a smug designer suit and that smug designer smirk. "You've done enough, brother-in-law. We won't be needing your services anymore." Laughter from a few of the sycophants on the board. Even Alina just stared at her lap. I looked around the room, silent, calm, then I smiled. "Understood," I said simply. "I'll clear my office tonight." Celeste raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem upset?" "Oh, I'm not," I replied, standing. "In fact, tomorrow's going to be fascinating, because what Celeste didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had quietly spent the last 2 years preparing for this exact moment. And when the truth came out, tomorrow, their empire was going to fall. Hard Chapter 2, The Ownership Clause. Chapter 2, The Ownership Clause. They forgot I had back at my office, while the others were celebrating my exit overpriced champagne. I locked the door, shut the blinds, and pulled out a single-page contract I kept stashed in a private drawer. Addendum 1 to be signed by Elio Delgado himself 6 years ago. During a late-night negotiation in his study right after I helped him save the company from a $28 million lawsuit that could have wiped them out. "For your loyalty," he had said, glass of bourbon in hand. "You'll get this." It was simple, effective, immediately. 15% of all intellectual property, licensing, and digital infrastructure developed under my name shall be jointly owned between the company and me. In the event of a leadership change, this agreement remains binding. Guess who built the company's software platform from scratch? Guess. Who filed the back-end server patents in his name and licensed them to the company? Guess who wrote the proprietary? The logistics algorithm that saved them tens of millions in annual costs me, and they thought they could fire me without consequences. This wasn't a resignation. It was a trap. That night, I remotely revoked every license key from my private server. Customer support dashboards, offline warehouse logistics software crippled. The e-commerce backbone dead. I knew they'd call it first. They'd blame a glitch, try rebooting the servers, but they wouldn't find anything because the real code lived. With me, and it always had. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, Celeste called. Her voice was high-pitched and furious. "What did you do? The entire back end is down? Orders are failing?" I cut her off calmly. "I suggest you refer to Addendum 12 billion of the private agreement signed by your father. It's legally filed. I own part of the IP, and you breached our agreement the moment you've terminated me without cause." Silence, then you're a Chapter 3, the Travis revelation. "Bluffing," I laughed softly. "Celeste, go check your email, and Travis should probably sit down before reading his, because the next wave was personal." Chapter 3, The Travis Revelation. Celeste thought she had traded up. Her new strategic advisor, Travis, was a slick-talking Ivy League MBA with a toothy grin and a LinkedIn profile filled with buzzwords. He wore flashy suits, talked about synergies, and bragged about crypto gains at every board meeting.
Right.
But behind the facade, he was a con artist with a sealed record in Nevada, a trail of failed startups, and 2 pending lawsuits involving misappropriation of investor funds. I knew because I hired a pie 6 months ago when I first noticed him hovering around the office, whispering into Celeste's ear during board meetings. He wasn't a threat then, but he was a cockroach. And I always track cockroaches. So before I walked out of that building, I prepared a little parting gift. At 9 a.m., just as Celeste was trying to spin the system shut down as a scheduled software audit, an anonymous email hit every major shareholder's inbox. Subject line: before you let Travis touch your money, you might want to see this. Attached: a 63-page PDF compiled by MyPie. Screenshots of his shell company bank transfers. Documents showing how he'd once embezzled $180,000 from a previous employer and fled before charges could be filed. But the cherry on top, a recorded phone call where Travis casually told a friend, "Dude, once I'm in with the Delgado family, I'll drain that company dry." And he meant it. By noon, the board was in chaos. Share prices began to dip. Vendors started pulling out. And Celeste, she tried to deny it until Travis disappeared. Phone off. Apartment cleared out. Gone. The man she'd fired me for had just ghosted her, leaving her holding the grenade. She tried calling me 8 times. I didn't answer. Then she called her father. Chapter 4. The Father's Return. By 5 o'clock, Chapter 4, The Father's Return p.m., the emergency board meeting was called. Not via email, not by Celeste, but by Don Alberto, Delgado himself, my former father-in-law. The man who once smirked at me like I was a disposable napkin at his daughter's wedding. He'd been retired for 2 years enjoying yachts and cigars in Monaco. But when news of Travis's con and the digital lockdown hit, the man returned like a king summoned by thunder. He walked into the conference room like a ghost resurrected. Everyone stood, even Celeste, his voice always controlled and terrifyingly calm, cut through the silence like a guillotine. "Where's he?" Celeste swallowed. Travis vanished. "And the man you fired, the one who ran this company for a decade, where is he trying to ruin us?" she muttered. Don Alberto turned to the room, slowly scanning each face. "Remember he warned you? You spat on his loyalty." He laughed in his face. "And now he's the only one who knew how to keep this place alive." Then he sat down, looked directly at her. "Fix it. Call him. Beg if you have to." She didn't even argue. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a whiskey in hand when the call came. It wasn't Celeste this time, it was Don Alberto. He didn't waste time with apologies. "Still have the recovery protocols, don't you?" "I do." "We need you back." I sipped my drink, staring at the skyline I helped build.
Are I not coming back as an employee?"
I said. "I come back on my terms as CEO. Full control. You and Celeste step aside. Silence, then deal." The next morning I walked into the boardroom in a custom Navy suit. Not as their errand boy, not as their family puppet, but as the man who rebuilt their empire and was now ready to reshape it in my image. Celeste, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Her father, he gave me a single nod, and me, I gave my first order. Our first initiative, ethical restructuring. And by the way, Travis's office, turn it into a janitor's closet, seems more fitting. The board chuckled, but deep down they all knew the king was back. Chapter 5, The Golden Exit. Chapter 5, The Golden Exit didn't come back to stay. No, I came back to take everything I earned, expose everything they buried, and leave them with nothing but regret. Within weeks of my return as CEO, I cleaned up the chaos, revoked every shady deal Celeste had greenlit, purged Travis's cronies from the company, and restored confidence in the board, the investors, and the market. But behind the scenes, was quietly preparing my exit because unlike them, I didn't need power to feel important. I had already won. 2 months later, I called for one final board meeting. This time, Celeste sat at the far end, silent, small, and stripped of any authority. Alberto watched me closely, like he already suspected something. "I'm stepping down," I said, gasps around the table. "But before I go, I'm activating the final clause of my contract." I continued calmly handing over the documents. "A buyout. Thanks. To the IP I owned, the restructuring value I created, and the share options I negotiated on return, the company now owed me $38 million in cash, not stock. It would leave their accounts bleeding, and I didn't care.
Ah!
This was my final invoice. Payment for 10 years of backstabbing, betrayal, and humiliation." Celeste's jaw dropped. Alberto didn't speak. He just leaned back, face pale, fingers steepled. They knew they couldn't stop it because they signed the contract. They let me back in, and I made sure every dotted line led to this moment. As I left the building for the last time, I paused in the lobby. Celeste came running after me. "Why?" she hissed. "Why go this far?" I smiled. "Because when you fired me in front of the board, I realized something.